Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. On the program today, we're going to be joined by what is known as the consummate entrepreneur, a person who's joining us here on the program who has created multiple businesses over his career that have generated billions of dollars worth of revenue. Now, you would think, wow, that's kind of neat. That's everybody's dream, to become somebody who's wealthy and being able to do just about anything they want to. But then he simply walked away from that and decided to do something different, and that is start something known as EM Squared, which he started just this year in June. And this is where he's able to support and help feed children around the world. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today, creator of EM Squared, our guest, Sam Castor. Sam, how are you today?
Hi, Daniel. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Now, it's really interesting that you were actually somebody who was the founder of Mannatech, which is very well known, and you just decided, this just isn't working for me anymore. What happened?
Well, actually, it wasn't that it wasn't working. It was working quite well. But in 1999, I had started a not-for-profit organization called MannaRelief. And that was a passion of my wife and I, to take our advanced technologies and meet the needs of the world's most vulnerable children. And so I was running a for-profit and a not-for-profit. And then in 2008, Daniel, the economy took a nosedive, and it hurt every industry, but probably none so much as the not-for-profit industry. Mm-hmm. And a lot of organizations saw their donor base completely erode. Ours, we lost maybe 60 to 70%. And, we've done a lot of things in our life, but nothing ever made us feel as good or complete or fulfilled as running our charity, MannaRelief. Mm-hmm. I had distribution partners all over the world that were helping me distribute product, and my partner in Mexico was a former president of Mexico, Vicente Fox. And I was talking to him about it, and we started talking about the new business model of social entrepreneurship. And President Fox said, I think it's the last bastion of hope for meeting the needs of some of the world's biggest problems, because governments can't do it. They're too broke. They're too ineffective, in many cases too corrupt. He said industry's too focused on bottom line, and the charity industry will never have the sustainable funding that it needs to make really a lasting difference in the world. So I said this new model of social entrepreneurship is a model where entrepreneurs go into business. They compete in the marketplace just like any other business. The difference is that they're willing to give up the lion's share, if not all of their profit, to create sustainability to whatever issue they feel passionate about solving. And when I heard that description of social entrepreneurship, I realized I couldn't retrofit it into my existing company. We are a publicly traded company, and your obligation morally, ethically, legally is to your shareholders first. And I was just a place in my life where I wanted to do more than just make money for myself and my shareholders. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just where I was. So there wasn't anything wrong with the company that I had. It just wasn't the model that I thought would bring the biggest change to the issue of childhood malnutrition.
Mm-hmm. To me it always seems amazing that I know there are a lot of people here on planet Earth, but that, like, for instance, you take a look at, and I'll just say this loosely, the gluttony in America. We can't even feed a lot of our children here, but yet we have so much food. It's everywhere. I know I live in an area like in Portland, Oregon. It seems like there's a restaurant or a store on every city block, around each of the counties. And, where is it all coming from, and why is there situations where there are children who aren't getting enough food or malnourished?
Well, I think the first thing you have to understand is there's a difference between starvation and malnutrition, or even overeating and malnutrition. And the World Health Organization just came out recently with sort of the new face of malnutrition. We're all familiar with a starving child in a developing nation of the world. We've seen those pictures for decades. The new face of malnutrition is an obese child in America or in Europe or in Australia. And what has happened is that our food supply is so radically changed over the last 50 years. Our best fruits and vegetables have lost a large portion of their nutrition just simply because of modern farming techniques that are all designed to grow fruits and vegetables faster and bigger. And then you compound that with the problem that 90 cents out of every food dollar spent in America now buys a processed food. And, of course, processing a food basically strips its nutritional value to create longer shelf life, more stability. And so what's happened is it's not about how many calories that we're eating. I mean, that's part of the problem. The issue is what we're eating has such a general lack of nutrition in our modern diets. And so what we see is the response to that is that children are ballooning up because their bodies keep craving more food because it's searching for essential nutrients to keep it, healthy. And so it's a global epidemic, and you can't solve it just by eating more food.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for giving the clarity on that. I think people look at starvation and malnourishment as being one and the same thing, and as you've just clarified, it's very different.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Now, tell us about EM squared specifically, what it is, what it does, so our listeners get a better idea.
Well, in social entrepreneurship, you have to find a way to make market penetration to generate sales of a product that the public sees as valuable. There was an article in Inc. magazine in 2011. It was talking about social entrepreneurship. And it said the model works best when, number one, the product being sold is the trigger for social change. So in other words, we don't sell tires so that we can make a donation to malnourished children. Because the problem is global and it's an epidemic level, we sell a product in this country and in developed nations of the world that brings value into the lives of people here. And then we sort of use the Tom Shoe model where every time we sell one of these food products, we also donate one of equal value for children around the world who would never have access to this kind of technology without our business model. So what makes EM Squared unique is that we make a food bar that is called the Hope Bar. And there's a lot of whole food bars on the market. You just need to go into Whole Foods or Sprouts or any of the major chains, go up to the bar shelves, and you'll see whole food bars. What makes ours different is that we enrich it not with synthetically made vitamins and minerals, but with whole food sourced vitamins and minerals. So the enrichment process, 95% of every food that is enriched with a synthetically made vitamin or mineral. And for the most part, the public doesn't know the difference. A vitamin is a vitamin. If you know what you're looking for on the ingredients, you can see it. But we felt like if we could develop the most natural, whole food, standardized bar that truly has a nutritional payload that can nourish a child appropriately, that we could sell that into the developed nations of the world because it has got its own unique characteristics that people that are looking for the most nutritionally dense whole food product, if all were considered equal, would pick us for the simple reason that we enrich it with whole food nutrients instead of synthetics. But when you add to that equation that not only that, we will also feed a child, we think that's a pretty compelling reason to buy our product. So we make a product called the Hope Bar, Daniel. We sell it retail into the marketplace, and every time we do, we donate one to a child in need.
That's just such a wonderful model because it isn't about somebody out just to make a bunch of money, believing they're making a difference with whatever the product is or the service, but it's something that actually spills over into other areas and does very, very well. That's a very interesting model.
Yeah, it's, social entrepreneurship is the most sought-after business school curriculum in universities today, according to Harvard Business Review. Mm-hmm. And it's because there's a whole generation of young people that want their life's work to account for more than just a paycheck. Mm-hmm. There's a whole generation of people my age, the baby boomers, that are now leaving their jobs, retiring. And I read an article recently that said the majority of them want to make whatever they do with the rest of their life really count. Mm-hmm. And so they're going into service. They're going into making a difference. And social entrepreneurship is truly a way where you can have it all. Mm-hmm. You can generate a part-time or full-time income by yourself, or helping spread a message that is radically impacting not only the people around you, but in our case, the world's most vulnerable children. Mm-hmm. And create a sustainable solution to a problem that really nobody in the world is being very effective at solving today.
I had the opportunity about a year ago, I believe it was, where I got to speak with former CEO and founder of what is known as Earth's Best Baby Food. And It was a fascinating story on how him and his brother decided, we're going to create baby food that is nutritionally valuable. And it was really fascinating to realize that this was a product, not theirs specifically, but baby food. We're talking about, little baby food that you buy, little jars in the stores. And it was really astounding to realize that a lot of this food was made by what was left over from processed food. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's bad all by itself just listening to it. But that it also was created and manufactured to retail that it would actually lose money. And they just didn't care that it made money or not. But, he was pointing out it's devastating to think that we're putting basically toxins into this young, developing human body. And so they decided to do something about it. And you were talking or alluding to earlier, especially when it comes to organizations where there is a level of greed and corruption going on. And there were parts in this story that made me just really angry. For instance, we can go ahead, all they needed was like the right people to come along with the right kind of funding just to get this up and running. You could just see it glaringly that this was something that today is still on the shelves, but that would make this tremendous impact. These guys had a tremendous mission about what they wanted to do, about affecting change with nutrition, just like what you're doing. But there was a part in the book where they were about to come into, I think it was $7 or $8 million, which really would have gotten them over the starting hump, so to speak. But what had happened is, in order for them to get this money, they had to bring in, and I'm going to use this term because this is the way I feel about some CEOs sometimes, this jerk-off president to come in and run this company. He came in, they never really got that money, but then he left the company, and so did the money. So it never really actually went into the company. But on top of that, in order for him to come into the company, this founder actually had to relinquish his position as CEO. And I thought, what kind of thinking is going on here?
Well, it's
and I know someone like you probably has a great bird's eye view about how to explain something like this.
Well, it's called business, and unfortunately, they call it the golden rule. Those with the gold rule.
Right.
And when you go, whether it's venture capitalist or you're raising money in the marketplace, a lot of times they demand a say-so in your business. And the problem with social entrepreneurship is you've got to get people that are dedicated to the cause. It's interesting. I went to a conference last summer in Mexico, and it was put on by the former president, Vicente Fox, who's my distribution partner down there. But his guest speaker was Mohammed Yunus, who won the Nobel Prize in 2006 for the creation of the Grameen Bank and microfinance. Mm-hmm. Which has now become the number one strategy for fighting poverty in the world. And but 50 million people have been impacted by microfinance.
Wow.
In Bangladesh alone, which is where he's from. But he told a very interesting story. He said, the first social business that we created, we decided to take on childhood malnutrition in Bangladesh. It's the number one cause of death in children. And if they don't die, it robs them of their destiny. It destroys their ability to think, learn, perform. And so they just can't be productive in society. So he said, we just knew we needed to do something. So we teamed up with Dannon Yogurt, who was willing to build a plant, make no profit from it, generate a product, a little yogurt cup that could have vitamins in it, and we put it on retail store shelves at a lesser price than the standard yogurt cups, and nothing really happened. And he said, what we came to realize is that the retailers or the clerks in retail didn't share the passion of solving the problem that we did.
Mm-hmm.
So we went into the villages of Bangladesh, and we enlisted village moms. And we created a direct sale program where they would take the yogurt cups, talk to other mothers in the villages about the devastating impact that malnutrition was having on their children. And then we paid them for telling the story and sharing, the inexpensive solution that we had created. And he said within about 1 year, where there was a good proliferation of village moms in our program, we were feeding 40 to 50% of the kids in that region. So he said the thing is, you cannot be passive in your approach to solve a problem. You got to be very proactive. Mm-hmm. And if you can financially incentivize those that have, the biggest interest in seeing the problem solved, like the mothers of children, he said you can drive your mission to the ends of the earth. So you do, Daniel, have to team up with the right people. It's not just money people that make the world go. In our case, or in social entrepreneurship, it's entrepreneurs who are willing to give up their profits to bring sustainable change to global issues. And so there's people like me out in the marketplace who say, I've spent my life doing good business. I think being fair, bringing good technologies into the marketplace. But I'm a place in my life where I want my life to account for just more than having run good, profitable businesses. Mm-hmm. And so you have to find those kind of people in the marketplace to really capitalize on this new model of social entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm. Now, how do you see this growing in the future? I mean, there's a part of it, for instance, I look back at the fact that you had founded Mannatech, which is a network marketing company. Now, there's an interesting business model that really takes a lot of beatings sometimes. And, when you can get people to clearly see that network marketing in and of itself nowadays seems to be a wonderful business model for doing business because we have the internet. There's no more of this door-to-door and networking the way they used to in the days of old. But the fact is it's such an interesting business model. And then you see social entrepreneurism as being, kind of the same thing, where it's people sharing the passion for making a difference by what it is they have.
Yeah, it's really changed a lot. What today is network marketing is really customer acquisition. Mm-hmm. In the old days, it was running small stores out of your garage. You bought a lot of inventory, and you provided that inventory to other salespeople in your community, and you tracked those sales and compensated people. And today, that's not really the way the model works. Today, it's just like any other retailer online, except you're willing to pay people to go out and share your story, mm-hmm. As opposed to using other forms of advertising, mm-hmm. because it seems to be much more productive. In social entrepreneurship, what I found is that plugging the model of social entrepreneurship into a distribution system where people get compensated for sharing your mission is probably the best of both worlds. Mm-hmm. It takes the best of Tom's shoes, which is every time we sell a pair of shoes, we donate a pair, which has just done tremendous, amount of market infiltration into the shoe business in America. And then you combine it with the passion that village moms, if you will, or people all over the world have for solving problems, particularly childhood problems. And then you compensate them for sharing that story in a way that they don't have to inventory product. They don't have to sell. They just have to bring customers to the table or to the site and through their portals that they receive. And listen, it turns out to be a tremendous business opportunity for people who are passionate about wanting to make a difference, for people who want their own quality of life impacted by whatever the product technology is. and are willing to share it with others. So I think it takes the best of every industry and puts it together and provides the opportunity for people that really want to be part of a world-changing concept to participate and profit from making a difference in the world.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was told by the producer there was an interesting story that you have about how someone was about to give you $10,000 for your nonprofit MannaRelief.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Well, you know, it's interesting. It was the person that has the TV show, actually, out in Las Vegas, and they saw the deal that we were doing with malnourished children in whole food solution and whole food nutrition. And they called me and they said, you know, we've got 5 or 6 major donors out here that would love to be a part of your program. So we want to make a donation to MannaRelief, my not-for-profit for feeding kids. And I said, well, I'll be glad to take your donation, but I'd rather you consider another way of helping. And they said, well, what other way could there be? And I said, well, instead of just giving me charity dollars, which I can only spend one time, and then once they're gone, what do I do for feeding those same kids? Because
right.
It's not a 1-month project. It's a project every day of these kids' lives. And so I said, here's what I'd like you to consider. Creating some scholarships for people that really want to go out and share this story. And you could provide a $500 scholarship for an individual, put them into business, you know, put your entity, position it appropriately so it generates a revenue, and instead of feeding 50 kids, you could feed 5,000, 50,000 by reinventing those dollars over and over and over through almost like a microfinance type initiative where you're putting people into business and have them generate the funds, you know, just by duplicating their efforts and building revenues that your organization can reinvest over and over and over instead of just one time.
Mm-hmm. You know, Sam, I really enjoy bringing stories like you to the light because it's so rare that you actually see these in the news or you hear them on radio because we're so infiltrated with, I think, what people are getting tired of is politics and religion.
Yep.
And, you know, the fact is we committed 10 years ago to this program to do the very thing of abolishing the word retirement because we felt the industrial age is done. You know, who wants to just go out and make money for so many years for that outcome of down the road when I can sit there and just watch the sun go down and maybe watch my own shadow in the backyard and enjoy being non-productive. But the fact is your entire life is about contributing, about giving back what you've been able to gain. And when you see stories like yours, you know, it wakes the listeners up out there to think, you know, I never thought about doing something like this with my life here.
You know, I think it's interesting. I saw a presentation by an entrepreneur not too long ago who was speaking to a large audience of entrepreneurs about this model of social entrepreneurship. And he said, as entrepreneurs, you know, we choose to go into business for ourselves, to take control of our own destiny, you know, so that we can hopefully become successful financially. But at the end of the day, what we're all looking for is what is the meaning of our life? Mm-hmm. What is the purpose of it? And we all realize at some point that the purpose is to do something bigger than ourselves. But we're always waiting for that financial security to get here so that we can participate in something like that.
And you don't realize participating in something that you really feel passionate about could be that financial security that you're looking for.
Hey, that's what he said. He said social entrepreneurship is the most unique model in the world because it addresses all of those needs in people's lives. Number one, they do have to make a living. You know, they do have to find a way to provide financial security for their family. But what if you could do something significant in the world on your way to success instead of waiting for that moment somewhere out in the future where you feel like you've made enough money where you can start sharing on a level? And he said, you know, the thing about this model is it allows you to do that from day one. The day you start contributing. And then the success that you have in the business model itself is multiplied in the impact that you're having on the world. So what if at the end of 5 years or 10 years, you could have made a difference in the lives of 10,000 kids before you even got to financial success? And he said, for most people, that is success. Making a difference in the world, and getting to that place where everything that they're doing in their life is congruent with what their life's passion is. Mm-hmm. That's what I love about the model of social entrepreneurship. I wished I'd have found it 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Sam, it's fascinating because on our program over the years, one of the things that we certainly talk about is finance and money, but we like to approach it more holistically where we take a look at our beliefs, what we expect, what we think money is. And what's really been fascinating is that although a lot of people would love to, as they say, win the lottery because they feel that's going to alleviate all of their problems apparently and make life better, the fact is most people really don't feel they need a lot of money to be happy. In fact, they say the average person would feel comfortable at $50,000 a year. That would take care of a lot of business, actually, in many ways. And when you think about that goal, that's not a hard one to achieve. And when you think about what you're talking about here for someone to be on their way to achieving that, the impact they would have, as you said, exponentially on their way, it's pretty incredible to take a look at a social entrepreneur business model and realize, wow, what a wake I'm leaving behind.
I read a survey that was done a few years ago on the American workforce, and it said, are you happy with the work that you do? And over 50% of the people said no.
Only 50? I thought it was bigger than that.
Well, this was in the survey.
Okay.
And here was the deal that was fascinating. It wasn't because of what they had to do for a job. It wasn't because they sat in a cubicle. It wasn't their boss. It wasn't their commute to work. It was none of those things. The number one reason that caused discontent is they said there's no purpose to what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And so the thing about social entrepreneurship, it brings that one intangible that really I think everybody seeks after in their life, which is meaning. Mm-hmm. It brings meaning to the ability to earn a living. And like you said, it doesn't take much to earn a living and so that people can be satisfied with where they're at in life. But finding meaning is that intangible that everybody seeks and few find in the workforce today. That's what I love about social entrepreneurship.
And Sam, you hit on something so important, and it's why I feel very passionate about what I do, because I felt that it's amazing that how much we celebrate celebrities, for instance, in this world, that everybody else seems less interesting. And I say to myself, do you know how interesting the person you walk by on the street could be if you just had a chance to ask a couple of questions and hear their story? What a spark that adds to someone who is allowed to do something like that, to say, I need to share my story with you so you can maybe glean some idea and insight on how maybe you can solve some of the challenges that you're facing or be inspired to achieve dreams and goals that perhaps burn inside of your heart. And, it's really fascinating to do this because people say, well, you do a radio show. Do you ever talk with celebrities? And I said, well, I do, but to be quite honest with you, they're not any more interesting than an average person out there making an above-average difference out there in the world. And those are the people that, to me, I feel most starstruck by.
Well, and, you take a problem like childhood malnutrition, it's not going to be solved by government.
No.
It's not going to be solved by a celebrity. It's not going to be solved, by a major for-profit entity. It's going to be solved by a people movement who have a vehicle that allows them to plug in and make a difference. And that's the only way something like this will truly bring, a resolution to a problem as big as this problem is in the world. Up to 1/2 of all childhood deaths are linked directly to malnutrition. There's a lot of problems out there, but you got to think something that is linked to 1/3 to 1/2 of all childhood deaths got to move up the ladder to the top of the list. And again, there is nothing that will solve that problem other than a people movement. Mm-hmm. So it's going to take people like you, like me, like anybody out there that has a little bit of passion that wants their lives to account for more than just a paycheck. And you plug that person into a vehicle like this, and the world can change.
Mm-hmm. Now, Sam, how can our listeners find out more about this work and how maybe they can get involved?
Do you have the number with you that is available to call? I'm just looking for it here real quick.
Yes, I see on here within my notes there's a number. It's 541-223-7482. That's 541-223-7482 is the number that I see in front of me.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
I had it on my phone, but I'm on a different part of the phone right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that.
And is there a website as well people can find out more?
Well, we have a corporate website, which is EM2D, as in dog, or David. EM2D. It means eradicate malnutrition squared, by multiplying the efforts of just passionate people all over the world that want to be part of a world-changing organization. EM2D.
Sam, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to visit and talk with us, especially to apprise our listeners that this is going on out there and that this is a wonderful effort on your part to be able to help those malnourished children around the world to be able to have the kind of nutrition they need for better lives.
Well, thank you very much, Daniel, and it's a pleasure to be on your show. I've heard so much about it. Thanks for allowing me to share with you my story.
You betcha. We're going to be sure to post a nice dedicated webpage for you as well on our website at beyond50radio.com. Sam, again, thanks for taking out the time to join us today.
Okay, thanks, Daniel.
We want to thank you, the listeners out there. See, you can make a difference. Just get involved. Find something that you feel passionate about. Perhaps this is it for you. You can find out more by visiting our website at beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50, by the way. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you again for joining us. This is the Beyond 50 radio program. And remember, live your day past halfway.